Okay, so this video will be talking about the circulatory system and the heart in human. Okay, so first of all, the word circulatory system, okay, in Chinese called 循环系统. So circulatory, from the term, you may see that. So first of all, it is a closed loop and there's something flow inside. And within this system, the thing floating is the blood. So blood flow inside this circulatory system. So it's used to transporting materials, substance. So including those useful like food, substance, as well as oxygen. Besides useful substance, they also use to transport some waste, as mentioned in the previous video, like carbon dioxide. This is the waste that produced after the respiration. Okay, and these blood, they are moving in a tube called blood vessels. Okay, 血管. So for blood vessel, there's a few types as well. So we'll later uh, talk about that. And blood is that pumped by the heart. Okay, pumped by the heart. Okay, so this is the relationship between the blood, heart, as well as the blood vessels. Okay, so let's start now. I think we have to start to mention about why do we need a transport system. The circulatory system basically is used to transport material within the bodies. But first, why do we need it? In fact, for some organisms, they need not a transport system. For example, some very small organism, we call this a unicellular organism. Uh, this basically means that the whole organism is basically consists of one cell only. Okay, so every living organism, they need nutrients, they need oxygen, and at the same time they need to remove the waste as well. If you are just one little cell, for example this one, okay, this cell, it would be very simple uh, for you to get the nutrients, because you can just take the nutrients, the oxygen from the surrounding environment. Okay, and after performing some respiration, you can just dispose the waste outside. This can be done simply by interacting with surrounding material. Okay, so you need not a transport system. Okay, however, for a multicellular organism, okay, like human, okay, multi means many, okay, cellular. So there are some very complicated organisms. So as we've mentioned, every cell, they need nutrients, oxygen, and other useful materials. However, you can see that for some multicellular organisms, because they have a lot of cell, okay, and most of the cells, they just live together, stick together with each other, okay. So unlike these cells, so they are probably maybe staying outside, like the pond, like a river. Food substance and oxygen are available in the surrounding area. However, quite a lot of cells within multicellular organism, they are just stick together, so they can't acquire oxygen and food. Which means that because of this, we need a very good transport system to bring those uh, cells their oxygen as well as nutrients. At the same time, we also have to take away their waste. So this is the reason why do we need transport system. So in this chapter, respiration will focus on the gas, uh, the gas transportation within the blood as well as the body tissues. So first of all, um, oxygen, yes, we need to carry from the lung to the body cell, or sometimes we use body tissue. Tissue here means a group of cell with similar function. Okay, um, and it is carried by the blood, and the blood is pumped by the heart, and the blood is moved through a network of tubes called blood vessels. And there are three main types of blood vessels: artery, vein, and capillary. In Chinese, they are the 动脉, 静脉, and capillaries. They are the very fine, very small blood vessels. 微血管或者微丝血管. Okay, so from this graph, you can see that just now we have go through the lung. This is the lung. Okay, this is your lung. And the blood will help to carry the oxygen from the lung back to the heart, and then it will be pumped into the body. Okay, this is your body. And after the body take all the oxygen away, it will go back to the heart here, and it will pump to the lung again to get the oxygen. So this is higher in oxygen. This is lower in oxygen content. So which means that for the blood, they have to pass through the heart twice for every cycle. Which means that if I have the blood right here, so after leaving the lung, I go back to your heart, and then I travel through the whole body, and after leaving the body, I go back to heart again, and I will pump it to the lung to get the oxygen and go back to heart. This is our starting point. Okay. So as we have mentioned, there are three blood vessels. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about artery. Artery, in Chinese called 动脉. Okay, I think it's very important to first know what's so special about artery and vein. Artery is the blood vessels that receive the blood from the heart. Okay, so you would expect that they are facing a blood pressure, higher blood pressure. So which leads to you need to have a thick wall to withstand the blood pressure. Otherwise, it will burst. Okay, thick wall to withstand such high blood pressure. Okay, while vein, so they responsible to carry the blood, carry the blood back to the heart, which means that the blood pressure will not that high. Okay, lower in blood. Excuse me. So lower in blood pressure. Okay, lower in blood pressure, which means that you expect their wall would not be that thick, would be a little thin wall, relatively speaking. Okay, so that's why you can see if you compare the thickness here and here, here and here. So this is much thicker. This is thinner. Okay, and at the same time, the artery usually have a small lumen. Lumen here you can consider as the diameter of the vessel. Okay, diameter of the tube. Okay, so artery have a smaller lumen, while vein has a larger lumen. So the reason very simple, because as I've mentioned, artery has a very high blood pressure, okay, while vein has a lower blood pressure. So in terms of the speed of the blood travel, what do you expect? So obviously, the blood in the vein would travel slower, okay? So we do not want to give further resistance. We do not want to slow down the blood further. That's why larger lumen would somehow slow, I would say about like that. Okay, so because of the blood speed, that's why small lumen would slow down the blood speed, slow down the speed of the blood. Okay, travel speed. However, larger lumen would not have that effect, less slow downing effect. Okay, that's why they can still go back to the heart. And last one, capillary. Capillary. Capillary, one thing that I would like you to pay attention is that it has a very, very, very small lumen. How small? This size can only allow one red blood cell. The smallest capillary can only allow one red blood cell to pass through. Okay, just enough for one red blood cell to pass through. And also the capillary, the wall is made of a single layer of cell, only very, very thin. Okay, so these again to shorten the diffusion system. Sorry, diffusion distance. Diffusion distance. Okay, thus increase the effectiveness, increase efficiency of the exchange of substance. And moreover, there's a special features can be found in the vein. Okay, so as we have talked about vein, in fact, it's carry the blood that's back to the heart, which you may expect the speed of the blood travel inside the vein is quite slow, very, very slow. Okay, speed very slow. Um, that could cause trouble because the blood in your body travel in one direction. If the speed is too slow, there may be some danger that are causing the blood to move backward. Okay, so that's why there is presence of valve. So what exactly is valve? Valve, first of all, is the a structure that prevent the backflow of the blood, and this can be found in a vein. So, for example, look at here. So in both situations, artery and vein, let's say both of the blood direction is traveling upward. Okay. So for artery, you need not the presence of the valve because very simple. They just leave the heart, okay, and the heart pump the blood. The blood move it in a very, very high speed because of the high blood pressure. Okay, no worry. However, for vein, because it is far away from the heart, they just carry the blood from the capillary, which is soaked in the tissue cell, the body tissue. So the speed is very, very slow. So they may not be able to move, especially for those blood in our lower part of body. They have to move against the gravity. So it could be very, very slow. That's why there's presence of valve. This is very important because this is act as a gate that only allow the blood move in this direction. When the blood go backward, it would be impossible for the blood because of the close of the valve. The valve close, which means that when the blood trying to go backward, it will be stopped by the valve, okay, which only allow the blood move in one single direction. Okay, that's why the valve only found in the vein. I wonder, have you ever seen this strange thing on somebody's legs? So in fact, this is a kind of I won't say disease, but it is showing that the valve is damaged. This is called varicose vein. Varicose vein in Chinese called 静脈曲張. Uh, the reason is, normally speaking, the valve is used to block the blood, okay? Block the blood, which only allow the blood going in this direction. When the blood trying to go back, oh, it's stopped by the valve, okay? So this is quite common, uh, uh, only happen usually in the legs because on the legs you're trying to push the blood backward up against the gravity. Okay, so however, so some people their vein may be damaged, which the vein cannot close properly, which allow the blood going back. Okay, which will somehow show in this vein. By the way, vein usually uh, close to the surface. Okay, close to the surface, which you can usually see the blood vessel from the surface of your skin, especially those green, blue in color. Those lines, okay, they are the veins. Okay, so these varicose vein usually happen in some jobs like sales, like teachers. It is quite common for those jobs that some position that they need to stand for a whole day without walking. Okay, so this would quite commonly seen, commonly found in the people with these jobs, this career. It won't kill you. I found that it won't kill you, but causing quite embarrassment when you try to wear dress, which can be shown easily. You can be found some green lines on your legs, okay, which is not pretty at all. Okay, capillaries. Okay, there are some very tiny blood vessels. Okay, okay, so very tiny blood vessels which only allow one single red blood cell to pass through it. Okay, so where exactly the blood, this capillary can be found? Okay, I would say, okay, so heart. Okay, after sending the blood to the body, it will pass through the artery, and artery will then branch into some smaller artery. Okay, And then artery, it will branch much smaller into capillaries. Because artery is still too thick, they can't get too deep or too close to the every single cell in your body. So they have to branch into some tiny but capillary like this. Okay, so you may imagine surrounding this would be different cell. So probably in your finger, in your toes, in your eyes, whatever. So these are the cells that needs the supply of the nutrients of the oxygen. Well, capillary is the one responsible to perform this exchange of material. Okay, so passing through these blood vessels. Okay, so the oxygen, the nutrients will be transported from the blood to the surrounding cell because of the diffusion again, most of them are diffusion. And also, those body cells will perform respiration. They have some waste as well. So they just, because of diffusion as well, they just going back to the blood, dissolve back to the blood and being carried away and joined together. All the line join together and go back, join together as a vein again, Okay, so you may see this graph. This is showing one capillary. Each of the red block inside the other red blood cell. Okay, so capillary is the front line that responsible to the exchange of oxygen, nutrients, and waste between your blood and the tissue, 组织. Okay. So, well, this happened to process. Most of the majority of them is called the passive diffusion. Okay, the another one is active transport, but you just leave it alone. We won't go to that aspect. Okay, so next part we're going to talk about heart. Heart is very important because they are responsible for pumping the blood, keep the blood moving. Okay, pump the blood and keep the blood moving. So here are some facts about your heart. First of all, it's about 300 grams. The size is just larger than your feet, Okay, and heart, you may consider it is a strong pump, that made of muscle, and we call the muscle that form your heart so cardiac muscle, 心臟肌 cardiac muscle. Okay, and it is located between two lungs. It is a little bit on the left. Okay, two lungs, and the heart. Okay, the heart have two separate pumps. Okay, you can consider, first of all, break that down into the right hand side and the left hand side. Right hand side, they are the pump responsible to pumping the blood that with lower oxygen, deoxygenated blood, the right hand side. While the left hand side, they are pumping the blood called the oxygenated blood. Okay, they are the blood rich in oxygen. Okay, so remember, deoxygenated blood, right hand side, oxygenated blood, left hand side. Okay, so after that, the blood is pumping from the heart to the whole part of body. Okay, for your information as well, so heart itself also need the supply of the blood vessel, also need the supply of the oxygen as well. So can you see this line? Okay, so this is responsible for supplying oxygen to the heart. This is called the Coronary artery. Excuse me. Coronary artery. Okay. So in Chinese called 冠状动脉. Okay. So these arteries very important. Imagine if suddenly these artery block or this artery lost their function, what will happen? The heart cell will not have enough oxygen, and which will cause your heart stop pumping immediately. Okay, so quite a lot of heart attacks, some joint bang, are correlated with this coronary artery. Okay, that's why there's some disease called 冠心病, which is related to this blood vessels artery. And one more thing, although from now on you can see a lot of blood vessels that with different color, most of them are either red or blue. Okay, so you have to put it in your mind that all blood vessels, they do not have color. They are pink. Why we have to point out the blue and the red? We just want to show you that the amount of the concentration of oxygen of the blood inside, higher or lower. Okay, so usually if it stays as blue, they have a lower oxygen content. If it is red, it would be higher oxygen content. Okay, so there's no blue blood vessel in your body. Okay. Okay, from now on we're going to talk about how the blood travel in your heart. Okay, so before the start of this part, you can first look at. I found a very interesting, or some of you may think disgusting, animation about how the heart pump. Okay, so right now we start from let's say all the blood just leave the body tissue, and right now it's being collected from um, the whole body and going back to the heart. Okay, so right now we first enter the right atrium. Okay, the right atrium. So can you see there's two blood vessels here? Okay, so these two blood vessels, they are the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Okay, although that's very difficult in terms of name, but very simple. So first of all, these two, they are the vein. They're the vein. Okay, vein, vein. Okay, so the one on the top, they collect the deoxygenated blood from the upper part of the body. Okay, while the one below, inferior vena cava, so they collect the deoxygenated blood from the lower part of body. Okay, so each of the blood vessels are being collected in this chamber, in this chamber, and this chamber is the right atrium. Okay, then after joining the right atrium, okay, so the blood come from here and here, enter this little chamber, and then it will be squeezed into the right ventricle. Before that, they have to pass through a valve. Again, a valve. This valve is called the tricuspid valve. Okay, so this valve is somehow located in between the right atrium and the right ventricle. Okay, so the blood right here being pushed into here, and they pass through these valve. Okay, so the next Instead, after entering the after leaving the right atrium, they go into the right ventricle. Okay, this is the right ventricle here. So right ventricle receives the blood from the right atrium. Okay, so right now the blood right here is still deoxygenated. So imagine where should we go? If you found that those blood deoxygenated, shall we pump those blood back to the body cell again? No, we have to pump it to the lung. We want to pump it to get the oxygen. Okay, so when the blood arrive the right ventricle, okay, so they would ready to go to the lung here. Okay, ready to go to the lung. So this wall will contract. How does the wall contract? Contract means 收縮. Okay, so reduce the volume inside and push the blood. Okay, so when the heart contracts, the blood is forced out of the right ventricle. Okay, so again, they will pass through a valve here. This is called the pulmonary valve. Okay, so this word pulmonary means lungs. Okay, 肺的. Okay, so there's some pulmonary valve here. Okay, and pump in the pulmonary artery. So now you may wonder why this is artery. Okay, so last time we have mentioned about the difference of artery and vein. Artery, they are the blood that move away from the heart, while vein towards the heart. Right now, because the blood is going to pump leaving the heart, that's why it is artery. Okay, while atrium, they are going to receive the blood from the body cell going back to the heart. That's why these two, this and this, they are the vein. Okay. Okay, so this is the valve, pulmonary valve, or sometimes we call semilunar valve. Okay. So when the heart is contract, the blood here is forced through the valve, and this valve will open, while this valve would close. Can you follow me? Okay. So when this muscle contract, okay, contract, reduce in volume, contract, the blood will push into these two and causing this valve close and causing this valve open. Okay. Well, the closing of this tricuspid valve could prevent the backflow of blood. What does it mean, the backflow of blood? So originally speaking, the blood needs to travel from the atrium to the ventricle. Okay, so this valve, because if we do not have this valve, okay, imagine what happened. Once I contract here, the blood can either move in this direction as well as this direction if we do not have this valve. Okay, but however, right now we have this valve, that's why the blood can only move in this single direction. Okay, so this slide is a better illustration about how the function of the heart. Okay, and And by the way, you know that for every heartbeat, there is two sounds. There's two sounds, okay? So now, these two sounds are caused by the close of two valves. First of all, when the ventricle here, when the heart is contract, these contract, okay, these contract. These valve will close. This would give you the first noise, the first noise of your heart, okay? After when the heart here is relaxed, then these valve will close, and the close of these valve would cause another second noise. Okay, so that's why your heart will have the dub, dub, dub. The first noise is closing of these valve. The second noise is closing of these valve. Okay, and some of you may not may not know how the function of the valve. This graph may show you better. Okay, so this graph, the shape is somehow like this. Okay, somehow like this, which would allow the blood move in this direction, but not in the backway direction. If you move backward, this would close the closage of the valve. That's why this can keep the valve moving single direction. Okay, so now the blood has leave this way. Okay, so it will be separate into two direction here. Okay, so this would go to the one side of the lung, and this would go into the other side of the lung. So please remember, this is artery, pulmonary artery, and it's a quite special case because most of the artery, they carry the oxygenated blood. However, this blood is deoxygenated, which means that they are lower in oxygen. They just come back from the body, okay, and they are ready to go to the lung. So these blood, in fact, they are lack of oxygen, okay, lack of oxygen. After gaining back the oxygen, they will come back later through the pulmonary vein. This is the pulmonary vein. Pulmonary, related to the lung. Okay, vein, 靜脈. Why call vein? Because the blood inside, they are going back to the heart, towards the heart. Okay, that's why they call vein. So these vein, pulmonary vein, they carry the oxygenated. They just come back from the lung, so they get oxygen. They get oxygen from the lung. They perform gas exchange in the alveolus, and then they join them together and form a vein, and then forming the pulmonary vein. And they will enter to the part called left atrium. So this is the left atrium. Can you see the hole here? Small hole here. Okay, so these are the place collecting the blood, oxygenated blood, okay, from the pulmonary vein. So these, they are the oxygenated blood with higher oxygen, and then they are going to pump to the left ventricle. And similar to the tricuspid valve, between the atrium here and the ventricle here, we also have another valve, and this is called the bicuspid valve or mitral valve. Okay, so they refer to the same thing. They refer to the same thing here. This is in between the left atrium and the left ventricle. This is prevent the blood backflow back to the atrium. Okay, it's only allow atrium to the ventricle. Okay, so this valve only allow them from happening. Okay, when the blood trying to going back, oh, the valve will stop it. Okay, so now we're going to the left ventricle. Left ventricle. Okay, from the atrium to the left ventricle. So, ventricle, they are ready to pump the blood into this artery. This artery is the largest artery in your body. We have a special name for them, aorta. In Chinese called 大動脈. Okay, 大動脈. So, and you can find that the chamber on the left ventricle, in fact, is much thicker than the right ventricle. We are talking about this thickness and this thickness. Why this needs thicker? Okay, so first of all, thicker muscle. What does it mean? Thicker muscle. It means that stronger pumping force. Why do we need a stronger pumping force? Okay, first of all, you have to think about where the blood is going to be pumped. Right ventricle, this is going to pump the blood to the lung. Okay, while left ventricle is going to pump the blood to the whole body. Whole body. Obviously, you need more force. You need more force to pump the blood to the whole body. That's why the muscle right here is much thicker than here. Okay, so because they have to pump the blood through the whole body, that's why thicker. Okay, and similarly, again, when they passing to this aorta, you can also see there's a valve right here. So this is the aortic semilunar valve. Okay, this valve here. Again, similarly, so this valve is trying to prevent the backflow of blood. So because when this muscle is contracting, okay, so that's okay, we push the blood, okay, moving this forward. But however, imagine I cannot contract for a long time. I have to release in some time, right? Like I have to release after each pumping. When I release, if I do not have this valve, what will happen? If I do not have this valve and I relax, which means I'm going backward, okay, the blood will being sucked back to the ventricle. That's why this valve is very important. We want to prevent this from happening. That's why this can help prevent the backflow of blood back to the left ventricle. Okay, with this semilunar valve, aortic semilunar valve. And at the end, the aorta. Okay, aorta is the largest blood vessels, largest, and also it is thickness. Okay, the reason very simple. Okay, they have a very thick wall because they have to withstand the highest blood pressure from the heart. That's why their wall is also elastic. Elastic means that you can change, even you change the shape of the wall, it will easily return to its original shape. Okay, just like a rubber band, 有彈性嘅。Okay, so this is responsible to pump the blood from the heart to the whole body. And at the end, do you remember where do we start? The superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. So the top, from the upper part, this is a deoxygenated blood. And this is also deoxygenated blood from the lower part of the body. And it will go back to the right atrium. Okay, right atrium. And you are going to start the whole journey again. So after leaving the right atrium, here would be the right ventricle. And because this blood is deoxygenated, so they will go into the lung, left and right. After getting back the oxygen, it will go back to your heart. First arrive the left atrium, okay, and then it is ready to be pumped. So to be pumped in the left ventricle, okay, and this will pump to the whole different body tissues. And so there's one more structure I want to mention. That is the septum. Septum is the part right here. Okay, septum. You can consider this is separating the left and the right chamber of your heart. Okay, so this is very important to separate the left and the right. There's one disease called 心漏症. So the one who suffer from this disease, there's some hole. In this septum. Imagine what would happen if there's some hole in this in the heart. If there's some hole, which means that it will cause the mixing of the blood between the left and the right. Then what is the consequence? So if you remember, the right hand side carry the blood deoxygenated, while the left hand side, they are the oxygenated blood. Imagine right now if I mix up these two together. Okay, so you may consider that person suffer from this disease. He or she may feel dizzy very easily once he or she performs some certain exercise because of their blood do not carry enough oxygen. So you may see the gas exchange rate or the capacity of the oxygen carry is lower than normal. So he or she will feel tired very easily. Okay, so this disease can cure by filling the hole. You have to perform certain surgery. Okay, maybe more than one time in order to fill that hole. Okay, so here is a summary. So first of all, one, the blood enter the right atrium from the superior and inferior vena cava. Okay, and this room, and then it will pass through the tricuspid valve, okay, enter the right ventricle, will pass through this valve, and this muscle will contract and push the blood go to the pulmonary artery. The contraction of the right ventricle force the pulmonary artery valve open and flow into the pulmonary artery. And the artery will then either go to the left hand side and the right hand side. Okay, so after getting enough oxygen, it will go back to your heart through pulmonary vein because the blood is going back to the heart. That's why pulmonary vein arrive at the left atrium here, this place. Okay, after that, the blood in the left atrium would go to the left ventricle, and the ventricle contract. So for information, these two parts, the ventricles, left and right, will contract together. So, and then it will pass through the aortic valve and would go to the aorta directly. Okay, so this journey will continue again after they have passed through all the, after they pass through the body tissue. Okay, after the cell take up the oxygen and coming back again. So this is the whole cycle. So in the following slide, I will talk about some of the disease that would damage our breathing system. Okay, first of all, some of you may know some friends, he or she may have some asthma. So asthma in Chinese is called Haojun. It is a condition when the airway suddenly narrow, usually because of some uh, some allergy, because probably of food, pollen, moldy, or pollutant, or even the change of suddenly temperature, okay, or even after exercise. This will cause the suddenly thicken of the airway, so which would makes it very difficult to breathe, and which will also cause certain symptoms, okay, cough, shortness of breath, etc. So the asthma can be treated immediately with this type of medicine. So inside there's some substance that can make these muscle relax as soon as possible instead of contract, but relax as soon as possible, trying to unblock the airway. So another disease is a genetic disease, cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is a disease that causes harm to both your breathing as well as the digestive system. So for the people who suffer from this disease, they have a lot of mucus produced inside the airway, which again block the airflow inside the bronchiole, which does not allow them to breathe easily. And this is a fatal disease, and because it's genetic disease, it cannot be cured. It also affects the digestive system. That is something related to the pancreas. Tuberculosis, Phygitha or phyllo. This is a bacteria causing disease. Okay, they cause infection in your lung. So because it's caused by a bacteria, it can be spread through the droplet from the cough or sneeze. Okay, so whenever he or she suffer from these disease, he or she must wear the mask. Although it's contagious, but no worry because all local newborns should have already given the vaccination of these kind of bacteria，俗稱嘅卡介苗。Okay. And besides disease, in fact, some bad habit would also affect our breathing system. One of the most common one would be the tobacco, 煙草. So smoking, in fact, all of us know it is very harmful. So not even to those smoker, but also to those non-smoker, especially like this one. Okay, we call this as the passive smoking or secondhand smoke. And why tobacco is so harmful to us? Because first of all, it contains lots of different chemicals. So some of them is cancer causing, which will cause you has a higher chance to having cancer. And also because of the temperature, while you are burning a cigarette, some of the chemical may not be that harmful at the very beginning, but once it is in a high temperature, it may combine or react with certain other substance and create deadly smoke. So the harmful substance such as carbon monoxide, okay, 一氧化碳, ammonia, and hydrogen cyanide. So you can check this. This is the healthy lung or the non-smoker lung. Okay. Well, this is the lung of a smoker. So here we'll talk about the three major substances. The first one, nicotine. First of all, it is a highly addictive chemical. The word here, addictive, means that it will makes you want to have that chemical. It means that you will rely or depends on that certain chemical. And if you do not have that substance, will feel very sad or very unhappy, and this is called the addictive. This is make most of the people why he or she cannot withdraw from smoking because of nicotine. So nicotine, in fact, it will cause increase in the blood pressure, heart rate, flow of heart, okay, and also narrowing down the artery, okay, which is usually will lead to heart attack, okay. So as I've mentioned, this is addictive chemical. So when you trying to, okay, let's say I am a smoker and I do not want to stop, I do not want to smoke right now. If you're trying to withdrawing something it was addictive, you will have this symptom called the nicotine withdrawal. Okay, you'll feel sad, anxiety, you can't sleep, maybe you lost your appetite, irritable, can't concentrate, etc. Okay, because you're already addicted to this chemical. So even for some organization, when he or she trying to help some smoker, trying asking them to withdraw smoking, uh, instead of give instead of withdrawing smoking immediately, he or she may be given for some candy with nicotine, with nicotine. But probably with reducing amounts, because otherwise he or she may give up easily because of this symptom. It is very, very discouraging, this symptom. And the second one, tar, 燒油. Okay, so it is responsible for many deadly cancer, and one of the reason this is one of the most toxic substance or harmful substance causing some long-term effects on the lung because it can kill the cilia of your lung. I hope you still remember what exactly is cilia. Cilia is some tiny hair along your air tract, your airway, your trachea. This was meant to sweep, to the uh, push the dust, push the germs, bacteria away from the lung. This can help to protect your lung at the bottom. This is your lung. Okay, this is your lung. So these can try to prevent the lung from receiving these deadly germs. Okay. However, tar can kill these cilia. So when you kill that cilia, so which means that the toxin or toxin, other toxin, they can travel into your lung. And because of without the cilia, they will stay in your lung or stay in your air tract forever. Okay, so this would cause your lung somehow like this. This is true in terms of color because tar, it was black in color, a sticky black substance. And the last one, carbon monoxide. For some of you, I have already told you that carbon monoxide, in fact, is a very deadly substance, very deadly. Okay, because it will cause you, it will kill you by suffocation. First of all, carbon monoxide, it will lower the ability of your red blood cell for carrying oxygen. Okay, so the concept is very simple. So first of all, your red blood cell, inside your red blood cell, there's something called hemoglobin. In Chinese called 血红蛋白. It is a protein that responsible for carrying oxygen. Oxygen. Okay, you may consider hemoglobin is just like this train. This train. Okay, originally it was carrying oxygen. Okay, however, carbon monoxide, CO, carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide would also attach to this hemoglobin, and it has a much stronger affinity. Okay, affinity. It has 200 times of the affinity for sticking to the hemoglobin than oxygen. What does that mean? It means that, let's say, originally, let's say this train can carry 1,000 oxygen, 1,000 oxygen. Okay. However, carbon monoxide have 200 times of affinity for the hemoglobin than oxygen. Okay, which means that as long as if I have one carbon monoxide, I already occupy 200 space for oxygen. Okay, so which means that if I have one already, if I have one carbon monoxide, at most I can only hold 800 oxygen. Okay, so imagine if this number increase, let's say to 2, to 3, to 4, it will occupy all the space for oxygen, which means that although right now you can breathe, however, the train hemoglobin can no longer carry oxygen, can no longer carry oxygen. So eventually, you will die because of suffocation. Suffocation. Suffocation means lack of oxygen. And it's only need a very little amount as suggested here. As suggested here. All we know that in the atmosphere we have 20% of oxygen, right? However, as long as there's 0.1% of carbon monoxide, it already taken half of your capacity for carrying oxygen. Okay, imagine if I double this amount, let's say 0.2, I would already occupy all of your oxygen carry capacity, which means that your hemoglobin can carry no oxygen. Then you will die soon. So depends on the concentration, you have certain these different symptoms. So carbon monoxide in fact is quite common, but most of the reason when you're going to burn something, you always produce carbon monoxide. But you have to make sure that there is a good supply of oxygen. If you have good supply of oxygen, you can reduce the amount of carbon monoxide as low as possible. So that's why we will not don't burn things indoor. Okay, you have to make sure that the ventilation is good enough. 空氣流通. Otherwise, if you do not have enough oxygen, the amount of carbon monoxide produced would be quite a lot. For the following slide, I will find there's also some hard facts of the smoking, the effect or the consequence to our society. Let's look at this chart first. I kind of found recent data. This is data from 2005 and 2009. So they found that each year, averagely speaking, there's like 470,000 people die because of cigarette smoking. So most of them, the reason of causing the death is the lung cancer, like 29% something. Another would be related to the heart disease, and another big factor would be the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Chronic means long term, okay. And at the same time, it will also cause other cancer and also the stroke. Stroke means the blockage of your blood vessels. The blockage of the blood vessels. 中风. Okay, so if you remember, nicotine would narrow the artery, which will increase the blood pressure and which will increase the chance of damage the blood vessels. And while this chart is showing some information, some data about smoking, so you may read it by yourself. So this is another interesting slide I would like to share you. It is about I think there may be some exaggeration, but anyway, he mentioned that okay, within 20 minutes of quitting smoking, so your body begins a series of change of that's causing this continue for years. Okay, anyway, so this is the benefit that talking about quitting smoking. So if you have certain parents or family members, he or she smoking, so try very best to ask them to quit the smoking, not only for their sake, but also probably for you as well because of the passive smoking. Okay, so that's it for the respiration, this chapter. And if you have any questions, so please send your question to your science teacher through webmail. Okay, so thank you.